So this week we helped a client buy her first home, and the brief that we ended up getting was a relatively challenging one. So this client came to us buying a home by herself in Melbourne, looking at ideally a 2-bedroom apartment in the inner suburbs. Now, the challenge we were facing is that as a single applicant, her borrowing capacity was not as high as we might like. She was taking advantage of the first home buyer schemes as well, which meant that she could really only purchase up to about $450,000, which for a 2-bedroom apartment in the inner suburbs of Melbourne really limits your options. So she looked at a bunch of properties, and one of the properties that she did find ticked all the boxes. Great suburb, great location, nice place, $437,000 if I recall correctly, and $100,000 cheaper than a lot of comparable properties nearby. Now, why was this property so cheap? This property was so cheap because of the fact that it had a company title. Now, a company title is different to a strata title, and it's a type of title that many banks don't like, because effectively, instead of owning the property yourself, you own shares in a company that owns the entire block of units. This makes it more difficult for a bank to take the property if you don't pay. So a lot of banks are pretty conservative on this, and most banks won't lend the 95% we wanted for a first home buyer under the first home guarantee scheme. Now, we work with 60 odd different lenders, and I would say in the vast majority of times, our applications go with one of the big five, or their subsidiaries. So we do a lot with your NABs, your Macquaries, your ANZs, Bank of Melbourne's, Westpacs. The reason for INGs, the reason for that is flexibility in policy in most of the times, and often the fact that they're actually quite competitive in pricing. Now, for this client, we spoke to 60 different banks, and one bank could offer the solution they needed, which was the combination of lending above 90% on a company title property, as well as being eligible for the first home guarantee scheme. One bank out of 60, but we found that one bank, they were able to assist, and she settled on that property today, 95% purchase on a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in the inner suburbs of Melbourne, which was purchased for under $450,000. If you ever had any hurdles with company title, or you thought that banks wouldn't lend to them, it can be true in some cases, but there are banks that can lend.